This is Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. We're honored to have the mayor of El Cajon join us today. His name is Bill Wells. And sir, I want to speak with you about transportation. And I'm not talking about gas tax increases right now. Most people are thinking about that. What I'm talking about is the way that the county of San Diego is able to dole out those gas taxes, for example. There's an organization called SANDAG. What is SANDAG?
SANDAG is the San Diego Association of Governments.
Okay.
It's a regional approach to dealing with transportation money and how to spend that money, and that's not unusual.
Right.
Orange County has one,
LA,
and so does the Bay Area.
Of course. So there is a bill that is percolating in Sacramento. It's known as AB 805, and it's looking to change the way SANDAG is structured. My first question is, why is Sacramento involved in this?
Well, I think that there's...
Other than the political reasons, why do they have the authority to be involved in this?
Well, actually, SANDAG was originally constructed through a law passed in Sacramento.
That's why.
And so they feel that gives them the reason and the opportunity to weigh in at this point.
Okay, so now we have this bill moving forward, proposed by an assemblywoman from this region, Ms. Gonzalez-Fletcher. And there's some serious concerns surrounding this bill, especially among cities that are not called San Diego.
Yes.
Explain that.
Well, SANDAG is made up of 19 different municipalities. It's all 18 cities plus the county of San Diego.
Right.
And it's really complicated to try to figure out how to do a voting system that would be fair to everybody. And what they came up with was a compromise that was very similar to the way the federal government deals with issues. And you know how the federal government works is there's the Senate. So each state, whether it's a large state or a small state, gets 2 votes. But that's not fair because Rhode Island has a very small amount of people and California has a ton of people. And so we have to then have the House of Representatives, and that is based upon population. And so California has many more votes when it comes to the House of Representatives.
We got 53. Wyoming has 1.
Right. And so SANDAG is very similar. But instead of having 2 different entities, each one of the municipalities has 1 weighted vote, and so El Cajon, my city, has 1 weighted vote, as does, tally vote, as does San Diego, which is much larger. But then to make it equitable, there's a difference in the weighted votes. So I get 3 weighted votes, being a moderate-sized city, and San Diego, I believe, gets 8.
Okay. So under the proposed legislation, that formula would vanish. And essentially would become, I guess, like the House of Representatives. Is that a way to say it?
You know, what essentially would happen, and the big problem is that any time that San Diego and Chula Vista, the 2 largest cities, which are very like-minded politically, anytime they felt like they wanted to push something through and they could do it without having any of those other cities involved, there's nothing the other cities could do. Even if they all banded together, they couldn't stop.
Under the old formula?
No, under the old formula, there is enough equity that if all the cities stood together and opposed San Diego or San Diego Chula Vista, you could probably stop something that was going to happen. I think that it's a checks and balances system.
But under the new formula, that would not happen.
No, and basically what happens then is all decisions would be made by Chula Vista and San Diego, unless they were decisions that we're all going to agree on anyway, which is, frankly, most of the time, we're usually all voting in the same direction.
Is this a solution seeking a problem?
I do think so.
Is there a problem right now?
No. In fact, in the past 5 years, there's only been one time in over 200 votes. There's only been one time when the will of San Diego and Chula Vista went differently than the will of SANDAG as a whole.
What was that? Was that to put something on the ballot? Was that the transportation self-help measure?
I believe that had to do with the assistant vice chair position.
So this was not a major issue.
It was just an internal governance issue.
So not a major issue. So that's a problem. Here's another one that kind of tickled me a bit. I found this very interesting. They're requiring that the only folks that can serve on the board of directors of this entity is the mayor of a city. Now, intuitively, that seems maybe wise, but in smaller cities, the mayor may not be available because they have full-time jobs.
Well, there's a lot of reasons that might not be the best thing. For example, I'm a psychologist by trade.
You got patience.
Well, but even more importantly, there might be somebody on my city council who is a transportation expert or is a planning expert or is somebody that is much more suited from their background to go and serve on SANDAG. It certainly seems within the right for the cities to choose the representative they'd like to send.
So help me on this. With regard to the voting scenarios, whether I agree or not is irrelevant, but I can understand why their proponents want that. I can see their argument. But whether it's the mayor or the council member, I'm having difficulty figuring out why that's become an issue. Do you know why? I know I'm asking you to fight for the opposition.
Yeah, I think I understand almost all motivations behind this bill except for that.
Yeah, that one I'm troubled.
That one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Well, you know what?
Does it?
Here it is. So there are cities that are mostly conservative, but perhaps the mayor is not as conservative. And the council can say, we're going to send one of our conservatives and not our liberal person.
But that's today. In 5 years, it could flip.
Well, I mean, we're seeing that in Washington right now, too. People are taking away some of the rules when it comes to filibusters and things.
Right, that's today.
It seems to make sense right now, but it may not make so much sense when the tables are turned.
Let's talk about Washington if we can. Coming out of Washington, we know the new administration is speaking very strongly as it relates to immigration enforcement. And the administration has said that if a governmental entity is not supportive of their immigration enforcement efforts, they are going to withhold federal funding. Now, the courts have gotten involved, and whether they can do that, let's put that aside for a second.
Sure.
Let's talk about, though, what California is doing, because California is looking to pass legislation which would essentially create, I hate using this word, but I'll just say sanctuary state status, because I don't know what sanctuary means. Most of us don't. But some type of safe zone where the state would not assist with immigration enforcement.
I think what it means is that the state feels that the immigration policies of the federal government are not right and they're not fair.
Right.
And regardless, they're going to fight back against that. They're going to practice civil disobedience, and they're not going to follow those laws, which I understand, but I think it's a dangerous precedent.
Talk to me.
Well, SB 54 is the law that would make that happen. And basically, I believe this is the Democrat part of our state, which is, as you know, almost all of the House, all of the Assembly and all of the Senate.
2/3. They have a 2/3 majority.
They feel very strongly that they don't like the president, and they want to stand up against the president. They want to make a vocal stand against the president. And one of the ways they're doing this is immigration. I think the reason immigration is the key issue is because that was one of the first things the Trump administration did, was the travel.
Are you concerned, though, and I think about El Cajon, it has a good number of immigrants, refugees.
Well, from my perspective, I don't see my perspective as my role as being the mayor of El Cajon as being particularly partisan. I mean, we're trying to keep people safe. We're trying to run a police department, a fire department.
Roads,
those are not partisan issues. And so I'd like to stay away from these kind of partisan fights. But I'm particularly concerned about this because it makes our city less safe. Because part of this issue is saying that if you are a gang member, if you are a murderer, if you are a sex trafficker, and you're getting out of prison, our police department and the prison are not allowed to contact the federal government and say, hey, we've got this person coming back into our community. We would rather not have him come back into our community. He's a dangerous person.
You have to come back so we can talk more about it. It's a fascinating issue. He is Bill Wells, Mayor of El Cajon. I'm Brad Pomerance, Local Edition.